Now, Pope Francis has kicked off a 3-day visit to Hungary. The trip is expected to be dominated by the war in neighboring Ukraine. The pontiff will only remain in the capital, Budapest, during the course of his visit due to his frail health. Last month, the 86-year-old was hospitalized for bronchitis, and he has been laying out his vision for the future of Europe in the first few hours of his arrival. We can now bring in Marc Roscoe Loustau, cultural anthropologist and expert on religions and politics in Eastern Europe. Great to have you with us here on the program today. What are some of the main themes Pope Francis is set to address during his visit? Mark, if you can hear me, I was asking you what some of the main themes Pope Francis is going to address during his visit.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
What are some of the main themes of the Pope's visit to Hungary?
Well, many Hungarians were surprised that Pope Francis decided to come back to Hungary, since he was actually in the country just as recently as 2021. The Pope has a special pastoral concern for Hungary, I think, because Prime Minister Viktor Orban is leading the country, including Hungary's Catholic Church, in a nationalist and very xenophobic direction. Orban frequently uses racist, even some say fascist language to talk about Hungary's racial and ethnic homogeneity. He even claims to be a defender of Europe's Christian values. And Orban and Pope Francis have repeatedly clashed over these claims. The last time the Pope was in Hungary, he said that Hungarians should open their arms to everyone. It was a not very subtle criticism of Hungary's direction, and the Pope has a number of opportunities this time around to accompany Hungarians away from xenophobia and on a truly Christian path toward openness and love of one's neighbors.
I mean, this is exactly what Pope Francis has been doing in his first couple of hours in Hungary. He's warned against rising nationalism and infantile belligerence. He says Christian values cannot be based on rigidity and closed-mindedness, and something very pointedly, which probably is a dig at the Prime Minister himself. He said accepting those with different languages and customs is a sign of fraternity.
Absolutely. This has been a theme that Pope Francis has returned to again and again throughout his papacy, from the beginning in 2013, and certainly it has special resonance in Hungary today, where in 2015, Viktor Orban, using, again, highly racist and very xenophobic and even some would say fascist language, resisted accepting refugees and migrants from Syria and other war-torn countries into Europe. And Pope Francis and Viktor Orban really clashed over that issue of how Christians should open themselves to strangers and to those who are socially marginalized.
But what we've seen from countries like Hungary, like Poland, we've seen the about face when it comes to accepting migrants from Ukraine, for instance. Last year, we saw, Polish residents welcoming Ukrainian refugees, whereas it wasn't the same for the Syrians and the Afghans fleeing a conflict in their respective countries.
That is absolutely true. And yet, at the same time, we should absolutely praise Hungary's Catholic Church for the work that it has done to offer a warm and very humane welcome to those who are fleeing the war in Ukraine. While Hungary has taken in many Ukrainian refugees, the number is actually far fewer than other countries, like, for instance, Poland. And there has even been accusations of corruption in the use of EU funds earmarked for refugees, including the Hungarian government artificially inflating the numbers of refugees who have applied to stay permanently in Hungary, also that the government can get more money from the EU. So really, Hungary's record is marked by certain negative accusations, and there does absolutely need to be more transparency and more scrutiny and oversight of the way that Hungary is using EU funds to help refugees from Ukraine.
Let's talk about the Pope's involvement in possibly bringing out a peaceful solution to the war in Ukraine, because this is something he has been asking for in the past. He's spoken about the need for negotiation and mediation to bring that war to an end. The Ukrainians, of course, want to see things won on the battlefield. China, in the past few weeks, has tried to position itself as a possible mediator. Could we see the Pope do more in the weeks and months to come?
Well, certainly war is raging just across the border from Hungary in Ukraine, where I am currently. Russian missiles and bombs are taking innocent human lives in this country. Pope Francis has called for an immediate cessation of violence. He has called for peace. So actually has Viktor Orban. And I think many people are looking to the Pope this time around in his visit to Hungary to clarify that the two men actually want a very different kind of peace. The Pope's calls for peace come from an instinctive desire, I think, to end human suffering as soon as possible. The Pope has a deeply principled belief in the sanctity of human life that comes from Catholic social teaching. Orban, on the other hand, he is playing a calculated geopolitical game. He is the NATO leader with the closest ties to Vladimir Putin and the Russian regime. The peace talks that Orban is recommending really would send a signal that Ukraine has de facto recognized Russia's illegal annexation of its territory. Orban has helped, in fact, himself foster the illusion that the two men, Pope Francis and Viktor Orban, are on the same page. He has even said that Hungary and the Vatican stand together in the peace camp, but that is absolutely not true. The two men have very different motivations in calling for peace, and Hungarians, not to mention the entire world, needs to know that.
Could the Pope's visit to Hungary change anything for the LGBTQ plus community in the country?
Hungary's government has recently passed a new law that will allow its citizens to report same-sex families with children to local authorities. And that means many healthy, loving families could be reprimanded for breaching what Orban really falsely calls the constitutionally recognized role of marriage. The least that Hungarian Catholic Church can do is to object that in this case, a particular group of human beings is being criminalized. It's really impermissible. On this matter, Catholic social teaching is clear and unambiguous. And so is Pope Francis, for that matter. Pope Francis has made remarks to this effect, for instance, during his visit to South Sudan and to the Democratic Republic of Congo. It would be entirely appropriate were Pope Francis to say once again, this time in Hungary, that laws criminalizing LGBT persons are a sin and an injustice.
Marc Roscoe Loustau, we're going to have to leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us on the program today.
Thank you.